Hey everyone, back tuning into today's video. It's JMA Friday. We're going to have a look at the coming month from the Japanese model, 500mm height anomaly charts. Also have a look at the CFS model from the United States. See what that's showing for September as well. So a bit of a longer range look ahead today, as we often have on a Friday. Before I get on with that though, just want to say about the ads. There's video ads on my pages at gasovers.com. Good hit play on video ad. If you are willing to support gasovers.com, thanks very much for doing that. So we'll start off with the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from the Japanese model, the JMA model, for the coming month. And they're broken down into weekly periods. The first weekly period will take us from the 28th of August to the 4th of September. The British Isles is upside down on these charts we just here, but it's relatively easy to work out what the model is showing. So for the first weekly period, we've got a ridge of high pressure really around the British Isles, a ridge of above average heights building in nicely there from the 28th to the 4th. Low pressure is out in the Atlantic and out to the east of the country as well, but we're nicely under this ridge of high pressure. So that's a settling down scenario and warming up. It's a pretty good representation of the weather in the coming week. I think we will find more summer-like conditions turning up, particularly as we get through towards next week. Now, as we go on through to the next weekly period, and this one takes us from the 4th to the 11th of September, we find that the above average heights continue to stick around the country. They do go a little bit to the north with time. So what could be going on here is that we're starting off with high pressure more or less centred over the country. Very gradually it's slipping up to the north. So over time, through this week from the 4th to the 11th, we may find things turning a little bit more unsettled, particularly perhaps to the south of the country, as low pressure begins to edge up from the south or the southwest. Overall, it's probably quite a settled week, but I think it may be hinting at a breakdown, particularly as we get through towards, say, the 10th, 9th, 10th, 11th of September, something like that. And then going through to the 3rd and the 4th weeks, which take us from the 11th to the 25th of September, quite a significant change taking place then. The ridge is going right the way up to Greenland and Iceland, so it continues to go northwards, and in response to that we get a trough of low pressure setting up underneath it, more or less right over the top of the British Isles. So that's a much more unsettled second half to September being signalled there. Probably cooler as well, cooler, more unsettled second part of September compared to the first part. So we have the dry conditions, particularly through the first week to 10 days, then probably a gradual breakdown from the south going on from around day 10, and then as we get through into the second half of the month, it could turn really quite unsettled. That's how the Japanese model is seeing things. Let's have a look at the CFS model. These are 500 millibar height anomaly charts broken down into weekly periods, and this first week period takes us from the 28th of August to the 3rd of September, so not quite a week. We see through this week period again, it's the same idea. We've got this ridge gradually taking over an area of above average heights, building in from the Atlantic up towards Scandinavia. So again, it's a settling down scenario. We've got the trough out in the west being kept out in the central part of the Atlantic, a little bit of a trough to the east as well. So it's a pretty similar idea to what the Japanese model was showing through this early part of September. We go through to the next weekly period. This one takes us from the 4th of September to the 10th of September, and again we've got this big ridge building in through this week. So I think again we do find a lot of dry weather through this period, of very big anticyclones setting up through the first week and just going into the start of the second week of September on the CFS model. So both the Japanese and the CFS are seeing things very similar in terms of the start of September. And then look at this, we go through to the next period, which takes us from the 11th to the 17th, and we find that ridge going up to the north. We find it going up towards Iceland and Greenland. Correspondingly, we set up a trough of low pressure down to the southwest of the country. This is a breaking down scenario, breaking out of the high pressure, turning more unsettled. Temperature probably okay, because I think with that we're probably still bringing up to southerly southeasterly flows, at least initially, perhaps until that trough of low pressure pushes through. But it's certainly turning more unsettled through that middle part of September, losing the settled weather at the start of the month, and then finally we go through to the period, as far as we can go with this, to the 18th to the 24th of September, so very much in the same time frame as the Japanese model. The high pressure, the above average heights, are still sitting up to the north around Iceland and Greenland. There's no trough of low pressure over the country, but I would suspect we probably would be bringing in a trough here around the country. It doesn't really show it, but I think that is an unsettled spell through a weak jet stream, probably running through the country, something like that as well. So taking the Japanese model and the CFS model, the American model, together, I think we have got good agreement. We are looking at a fine start, a warm start with a big anticyclone over the first week to 10 days, and then a breakdown through the middle part of the month, probably taking us late into the month as well in a much more unsettled situation. These are the city temperature forecasts from the CFS model, again from the website weatherweb.net. See how the temperatures are going to be holding up over the next 6 weeks. Actually, we go as far out as 6 weeks with this, but we're particularly interested in September. Of course, you can find the link to WeatherWeb on my links page. This is for Birmingham, and we find that temperatures are lifting up through the first week of September. This is the 1st of September. Just here we find temperatures are lifting up through the first week. Pretty warm condition, not desperately hot really, with temperatures up to maybe 24, 25, something like that, around the mid to upper 70s Fahrenheit. Certainly perhaps not getting up towards the 80s and 90s Fahrenheit, but of course it is September, so that's quite unusual to get it that hot. Anyway, that's a nice warm start September. From around the 11th, it's seeing this drop in the temperature, cooling off, and then it never really gets back to where it was, although very briefly around the 25th of September to pick up just for a day or two. But overall it's a cooler sort of middle and second half of the month compared to the first half, and that sort of continues going off into October as well, with a very gradual sort of change to much cooler autumnal conditions taking place. And by the way, by the time we get through to the first week of October, it is hinting at the chance of some frost there between the 6th and the 11th, but that's a very long way off. Let's concentrate on September before we start thinking too much about October. These are the precipitation forecasts broken down into weekly periods, again from the website weatherweb.net. This is the CFS model once again. Up to the week of the 11th of September, well, it's pretty dry, virtually universally dry across the whole country. Look how big that anticyclone is being hinted at right from the central part of the Atlantic through into Central Europe, and it's centred right over top of British Isles, so a very dry week going up to the 11th of September. But things change as we go through to the next week period. Remember, the CFS and the JMA are both hinting that the breakdown begins to take place through this middle part of September, so the week to the 18th of September, we find the dry conditions are breaking down. It's not a desperately wet week, but certainly a wetter week through that middle part of September as high pressure breaks down and low pressure starts to take over. The next week period, going up to the 25th of September, shows proper unsettled conditions. We saw this on the JMA and the CFS, but by the time we get through to the second half of the month, we're very likely to be having unsettled conditions. So we have above average rainfall here, quite a wet week coming up to the week ending the 25th of September, and then going on into the week ending the 7th of October, so right up to the end of September, and it's still unsettled there, although not as wet as the week before, but nevertheless we're still bringing quite a lot of rain through during that final week of September. So it looks like we're going to have a month of two halves really, up to around the 10th of the 11th, a lot of dry weather and pretty warm, and then a breakdown from the middle of the month onwards into the second half of the month, when it turns a good deal more unsettled. If I just have a look at the generic charts, the short range charts for the next week to 10 days, this is the GFS for a week away, Friday the 5th of September, still with high pressure well and truly in control, bringing that to perhaps last burst of summer warmth and fine weather across the country. As we move through to day 10, the GFS model is showing that the high pressure is still around, although it's perhaps hinting at going a little bit more out to the west, maybe cooler air beginning to start to push in from the north. Remember, it's any time around the 8th, 9th, 10th, but we might see this high pressure beginning to break down. So perhaps this is just the start of it picking up on that, although really up to the 8th of September, 10 days away, the high pressure is still very much dominating the conditions. The ECMWF for day 10, you see with this on Friday the 5th of September, is that we bring something of a cold front down across the country. We've got high pressure really ridging through, but it's sort of splitting with some of the high pressure going off into the Atlantic, and of course the main centre of it up over Scandinavia. A bit of a cold front moving through the gap. That could be a little bit active, having some rain down across the country on Friday the 5th. But I think the bigger picture is to look at the temperatures, and behind that it is turning the north. So even by the 5th, we're sort of hinting on the ECMWF that a change is coming, really, for what we have through the first 4 days of the month. We get through to Saturday the 6th, and we're in a much cooler northerly flow band. High pressure's out to the west, probably bringing showers down across the country. So a quick end to this fine weather on this morning's ECM could be overdone. However, as we go through to the 8th, the high pressure is pushing back in, albeit in a cooler air mass, so won't have a very warm start, but we have perhaps up to September with this. But nevertheless, the high pressure is still there, or thereabouts, bringing a lot of fine weather. This little trough to the east could be bringing showers to the east coast, but the big picture is really about high pressure is more or less still in control. So we're not really seeing a breakdown on the ECMWF up to the 8th. Neither are we on the GFS. They're both thinking about high pressure is still really control. It's just that the air masses are a little bit different, whereas the GFS up to day 10 is still very warm. The ECMWF does quickly cut off the warm supply there and turn it cooler. Of course, being into September, that's a plausible scenario. If it was July, it could be a bit over the top, but by September it's getting harder to sustain warm. So it could be that we only get 3 or 4 days of pretty warm weather next week, and then it cools down, or the GFS might right away extend out to day 10. But I think we're looking at generally quite a fine and dry sort of week to 10 days of September, and then as we go through from 10th, 11th onwards, find a gradual breakdown taking place. It probably won't be a quick breakdown. I think it'll turn very slowly more unsettled up to the middle of the month. Then the second half of September could be a lot more unsettled, with some proper bouts of rain coming through. So that's how it's looking for September on the longer range output. Remember, it's all very experimental, so not to be relied upon. We're doing the week ahead forecast tomorrow, so come back for that. Particularly if you like summer-like conditions, there's going to be a proper spell of late summer weather next week, so come back tomorrow for week ahead forecast for more detail on that. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.